Hey everybody, welcome to Grace with Paul Gray. We've been talking about harmful thoughts and what to do with them when we have them, because we all have them. Yesterday we learned that when we have harmful thoughts, just to stop and recognize them. Recognize they don't belong to us or to God. They don't come from us or God. They come from evil, whose objective is to steal, kill, and destroy. Evil that lies and accuses and condemns us. Evil that comes from our ego or our flesh or our false self. Evil that many times uses religion as one of its main tools. We're not to be ignorant or unaware. Evil is there. So, what do we do with those harmful thoughts that are not our thoughts? Well, today, after we recognize them, we reject them. Recognize and reject. Jesus said, take no thought about some specific things. And it really relates to what we're talking about here. Those thoughts are there. They come from somewhere, but not from the real us. They're harmful. So just simply don't take those thoughts. Those harmful thoughts, actually, if we think about them and dwell on them, produce stress. I mean, we can all relate to that. We start to thinking about something and pretty soon we're stressed out and we start to ache and we got a knot in our stomach or in our shoulders or wherever. That's because stress produces a chemical called cortisol. According to many healthcare professionals, the stress hormone cortisol is public health enemy number one. Scientists have known for years that stress cortisol, the elevated levels of it, interfere with learning, with memory. They cause us to have a lower immune function. They affect our bone density. They can increase our weight gain, increase blood pressure and cholesterol, and foster heart disease. See, chronic stress and elevated cortisol levels also increase risk for depression, mental illness, and lower life expectancy. This is not my theory. These are what studies by lots of different groups have shown. Studies have linked elevated cortisol as a potential trigger for mental illness and decreased resilience. Cortisol is released in response to fear or stress by our adrenal glands. There are two types of stress. There's good stress, eustress, eustress, and there's distress or bad stress. They both release cortisol as part of the general adaptation syndrome. And once the alarm to release cortisol is sounded, our body becomes mobilized and ready for action. The warning has gone out and our body gears up and it's ready to do something. And if there's no change in the stress-producing situation, then those cortisol levels are released and they build up in the blood, which then goes on to wreak havoc in our mind and our body. However, we have the choice to not let that happen. We have the choice to change the situation. We can think about it when we start to have those harmful thoughts, and there's nothing for any of us to beat ourselves up or be condemned about or think we've sinned or whatever by having thoughts. We can just recognize those thoughts and do something with it, or we can obsess over it, worry, stress out, become bitter, play the victim card, let it control us, catastrophize, think the worst, and then the cortisol will really get to us. We can even do spiritual warfare, a spiritual term, a religious term, and focus on the harmful thoughts from evil and try to defeat them. Well, listen carefully. Spiritual warfare has already been done. The battle was fought at the cross. And by Jesus' finished work at the cross, evil has been defeated forever. Evil exists in our minds. It's not us. They're not our thoughts. That's where it exists. And Jesus has defeated any power that evil has over us unless we go ahead and give it power. See, we're not capable of doing spiritual warfare with evil forces. So what we do is we reject those thoughts completely. And we give them to Jesus, Christ in us, who is all-powerful and all for us, and who has already defeated those evil thoughts. We can simply say, look, those are harmful thoughts. They didn't originate with the real me. They're not my thoughts, false. They're not true. I know they're not God's thoughts. I reject them, and I refuse to give them any weight or any credence. Just say, no thanks. I'm not going to have these thoughts. Jesus, I release them to you. We recognize we have them. We reject them and release them to Jesus. Doing those things is huge, but we can't stop there. It'll leave us vulnerable if we just stop there. Jesus tells us there's one more very important thing to do. Tune in tomorrow, and we'll talk about it. See you then.